Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Beatsbyash, back at it again with another banger of a video. And today I want to ask a question that I think a lot of people in my age range have really wanted to know the answer for. Where can people who just got out of school in their early 20s realistically go to actually meet someone that maybe they could date or enter a long-term relationship? And I want to start off this conversation by reacting to a portion of this interview that piqued my interest for discussing this topic today. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the context here is this guy who's about to talk. He basically just made like a book about how difficult it is to obtain wealth for young people in America, and basically how the system is fucked.
What else do you see that has created this climate for this generation?
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have YouPorn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. You know, there's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates. That stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life, and they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory, they're more prone to misogynistic content, they're less likely to believe in climate change, and some they become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
So essentially what this guy is saying is that because you're in your early 20s and you don't want to go outside and take risks, you want an easy entry to winning at life. So that's why you can't get bitches. You're deciding to stay at home and, jack off and talk to people on Discord because you're scared of getting bitches. That's exactly our problem. And, when you're scared of getting bitches, you're prone to conspiracy theories. Ooh.
This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said, we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
But what happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races.
And also violent behavior. Ooh. And also YouPorn. What the fuck? And finally, you may feel the need to deny climate change or even consistently listen to Andrew Tate. Oh!
And I said, well, what color's your brigade? Oh, fuck off then.
Now, I want to start off by saying, I don't know if this guy is just like a deep state puppet paid off by the Biden-Harris administration or what, but what the fuck does jacking off and getting on Reddit have to do with not wanting to go out and get bitches? And also just like being into conspiracy theories. Like, none of these things make fucking sense. There are no correlations between these things. Like, you can say like, oh, well, that guy who's typing on Reddit, he's a fucking virgin. So obviously, like, he doesn't want to go out there and find girls. Or maybe he's in the boat that the majority of Americans who are just out of school are in, which is there are really no places left in the modern world of dating for you to go out and naturally meet someone of the opposite sex that you may be interested in dating or entering a long-term relationship where you inevitably start a family together. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, if it wasn't evident enough from the clip, this guy is a boomer, a member of the single most well taken care of generation in the entire history of the world.
21.
Can you do something for me?
Like, these people literally had everything handed to them and didn't have to go through any war. And they're trying to say that our problem is that we're pissed off and we're jacking off on Discord and we're ejaculating all over our Reddit posts with our YouPorn. These are the kind of people that are the reason why we have these problems today. So people like this guy, 30 to 40 years ago, they could go into a bar and meet a girl and potentially take her home just because they were funny. And this guy thinks that the same practices that were true 30 or 40 years ago are still relevant today. And I'm here to tell you that that is the exact opposite. That is something you can no longer do for a few reasons. Now, one of them is the social aspect that most people, not even just people in their early 20s, mainly interact with people instead of going into public domains via their cell phone or online, right? But then the other aspect of it is that historically, the way that resources were brought into a relationship has drastically changed. And let me break that down for you. Now, this is not a debatable thing. I'm ready for people to attack me as a misogynist, but this is just fact. So historically, women were greatly more incentivized to have children in every other time period besides today, and especially at a young age. And that's because the reality is majority of women do inevitably hope to eventually have children and start a family. Most women feel that, they get very fulfilled by this. Now, obviously, there are some women who may not desire that, but we're not talking about those women. The average person would like to do that, girls and guys, but I think more so girls. They are the one who is having the kid. And historically, a man's salary in America would be able to fully take care of the entire family. So there were a lot of advantages for a woman having a child in life early on and meeting that long-term partner early on, because they didn't have to worry about the security of being able to afford that child, because the average man would be able to take care of that family without the woman having to worry about developing her own career. Now, obviously, we know in modern times, due to Bidenflation, we now are living in a society where the average couple that the average married couple with children, the average couple without children cannot be supported unless you have a top 10% job solely off the man's salary. In most relationships, the man and the woman now have to work in order to pay for the children because of this inflation, because of the drastic change in the way that our society economically works. And so now there are not as many incentives for a woman to have a child at an early age. These American women now, instead of right after school, if they aren't already in a relationship, going out to public domains, trying to meet guys, putting themselves out there so that they could potentially enter into a long-term relationship, they're now focused on their careers and earning money immediately after school so that they could eventually afford to have a child later on in life. And there are just a whole bunch of problems with that that's just creating this huge issue in our society where people in their early 20s cannot go out to a public domain and meet a girl that's actually interested in dating them because they don't have any desire to go out there and put themselves in the open to opportunities at a young age because they're focused on working. Now, don't get me wrong. These women still want attention, but they just don't want to sacrifice their time spent working or developing their career to do so. So most of the women my age get their attention through social media. Now, this may surprise some of you. The average woman in her early 20s, even an 18-year-old, can receive anywhere from 50 to 100 direct messages per day on an app like Instagram or, maybe even Snapchat. I don't know. Whatever app you're using, those are the statistics, and that is just facts.
These guys, the commitment that these guys have, I've never seen anything like it. They've been talking to themselves for like 5 years in my DMs. And I'm like, am I wrong?
Even the most average of women, maybe even someone who's below average, can still receive an insane amount of attention without having to do realistically any work. You know, they may not even put on a bunch of makeup to go outside or dress well to present themselves, but they have these filters on their pictures, and so people are giving them attention. And really what it causes these females to think is that their expectations are greatly beyond what is realistically possible. Because, for example, if a famous person DMs one of these younger girls and is hitting on them or even offers to fly them out, then these girls start thinking in their mind, well, oh, if famous people around the world are interested in me and they really want to, get with me, then obviously I must be worth that level of guy. And I shouldn't settle for the average hardworking guy who is my age. Because if Jay-Z is hitting me up, then I deserve Jay-Z or even better than that because that's what I'm worth. But the reality is that a lot of these girls don't comprehend the reason that those guys are hitting them up is not because they're going to take them seriously. It's because the top 1% of social economic people who utilize these apps are using them as a way to potentially easily access hookups with these girls.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
But they're not interested in taking them seriously. That is their main purpose of using these applications. And these girls don't realize that. They think that those guys want to take them seriously. So then they're like, well, I can get even higher quality men easily accessible without having to actually go out into the real world. So why would I do that if it's giving me, worse quality? Which makes absolute sense. And it's very understandable when you think about it like that. Like, if you can get something better in anything in life, you're always going to choose, the higher quality product, the higher quality thing that you can get when you have the option. And these girls have so many options that it really just deludes their mind into thinking that their unrealistic expectations are completely normal when that is completely ludicrous.
She got a perfect 5 out of 5 catback, so yeah, your standards might be too high.
And in saying all this, to really bring all this full circle, it's physically impossible for a guy like me in their early 20s who just graduated college or high school to have already obtained that top 1% social economic status that the girls in their age range feel like they're entitled to because they just got out of school. They're focused on developing their career so that they can get to that point. Unless they just 1 in a million got instantly famous overnight, from the internet. But that's not going to be the average guy. So what ends up happening is now girls in your same age range are basically completely inaccessible. Because even if you tried to reach out to them on social media, well, why would they respond to you when they had these top 1% guys that are also reaching out to them? They're always going to go for what is the higher quality. And with the way that this current social system works, it's basically impossible for you to find a long-term partner in a natural way. Now, I know some people like to use dating apps, but the reality is that those are just a complete waste of time. And if you're a person like me, I am a very religious, moral-based person, and I'm looking for a girl that I would like to one day be my wife, one day be the mother of my children, and dating apps are just not a good place to be looking for that, or even social media. Because the reality is, connecting with someone solely based on their digital looks is not a good basis for a long-term relationship. The friends that I've had that actually did meet someone through a dating app, one friend, for example, was in a long-term relationship with one like that, and the girl just eventually ended up cheating on him. The whole premise is just really bad for finding a quality girl in general. Because when you really think about it, if all of these even average or slightly below average girls are getting more attention than they can handle from stuff like Instagram, why would they actually want to link up with you from a dating app when these girls are already getting so much attention naturally? You know, when you think about it like that, if a girl is actually on a dating app for a real purpose that they're trying to find a long-term partner, there's probably something wrong with them because of the massive amount of free attention that they already get. And that should be an immediate red flag to you. You know, and I've seen that happen many times to the different friends I've had. But for the most part, you know, the friends that I've had that have been in a relationship and are still in a relationship today are people who only met their current girlfriend while they were still in school. You know, any of my friends that met someone through a dating app, it did not work out well, you know, and I have a lot of friends. And then there are just other friends who haven't even met anyone because they're not going to use these dating apps and they didn't happen to get to meet someone in school. And now you're basically shit out of luck. Because at a certain point when these girls are waiting to develop their careers before starting a relationship, well, if I personally get to the top 1% social and economic status and it takes me 10 years to do so, I'm not going to be trying to get with a girl that's the same age as me that's been with a bunch of different guys already because I worked hard to get to that level. Why would I do that? I deserve someone who's going to be a devout and loving wife. So it really just doesn't make any sense, these girls' philosophies that they're trying to wait until after they fully develop their career and have these insanely high standards. And in some situations, it even gets to a point where, you know, a lot of girls now have the opportunity to make drastically more money than the top 10% of guys. You know, nowadays, a girl could start what's called an OnlyFans, where they're essentially posting sexual content, either pictures or just straight up porn, and could be receiving, you know, more than $10,000 a month from the age that they're 18.
Everybody's got a price. Everybody's gonna pay.
And, you know, when these girls are making this vast amount of money, you know, I'm going to look past the aspect of no guy is really trying to take a girl serious who is a sex worker. You know, maybe if you retire, but still even then your chances are so slim of someone taking you serious. But when you're making this vast amount of money, you know, a lot of guys are just not going to want to try to take you serious because if you're making more money than me, you have a higher level of social clout than me, and you're the woman, you also provide the babies, you already provide all these other innate resources to the relationship, then it kind of makes you feel like as a man, well, what am I even really providing? You're already just providing all this stuff in a better way than I provide. And to me, that's just a terrible basis for a long-term relationship. And 9 out of 10 times, those are just not going to work out. So I ask the question once again, where do people who just graduated school actually go to naturally meet another person their age to start dating or invest into a long-term relationship and potentially a family? I personally don't know that there are a lot of places left in America to realistically do that. You know, some people have told me, well, why don't you go look for a girl at, you know, your church young adult group? And to that I say, my church has thousands of people, and the young adult group has no single young girls that are my age. It's all just young couples. And then family members have told me, well, why don't you try to meet a girl through work when you get this new job? And to that I say, most places I've worked at, it's frowned upon to date someone who is in the workspace. And ultimately, I just think that's a bad decision. Like, sure, if it happens, awesome. But you should not be trying to pursue that kind of relationship because ultimately, those things end up putting your professional career in danger. You know, I have one friend who had the job that he enjoyed most out of any job he's ever had, and the manager ended up being interested in him and he didn't reciprocate that. So the manager retaliated against him and then he was basically forced to leave the job. I've seen it happen many times. Even if you're dating a person who is the same position as you and not ahead of you, they can still go tell HR, they can still go tell the manager bad things about you and either get you fired or make your life like hell to where you can no longer work there. So ultimately, I just don't think that you really should be trying to meet someone through a job. And I don't know if there are really any places left that you can naturally meet someone in America. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about this topic because it's one that I've really been interested in and thinking about a lot recently. And with all the information coming out on the news about declining birth rates in many different countries in the world, even in some countries like Japan, where they're actually paying people to have kids, I feel like there is no better time than now to talk about this issue. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. As always, if it's not the goo, it's got to go. Peace.
Ooh, is that indigo?